Welcome to the Outdoors and Holistic Project, the podcast edition with City Girl in Nature. My name's Kusia. I'm joined today by guest Matiga, also known as Makeba Doula. Thank you for coming down today to be a part of this. First of all, what is a doula?
So a doula is what we would have called the grandmothers, the aunties, the women in the village that accompany women through their labour and birth. The meaning of the word doula is actually to be of service to woman. So it's similar to the role of a midwife in that sense, to be with woman. But with a doula, you don't necessarily do any of the medical side of things. So a doula is the emotional support, the signposting, sometimes advocating, holding the space, but not anything to do with measuring baby and checking heartbeats and vaginal examinations and all of that kind of stuff that the midwife would also carry out. So it's ultimately to be with woman, to be of service to woman through childbirth.
Fair enough. Yeah, quite an interesting role and thing I only came across through my own experience, as you would know in particular. But I'd love to hear about your own journey and of motherhood and how you came across even becoming a doula.
So for me it was I'm a mum of three. I was a teenage mum for my elder two. And through those births, I had that wasn't even on my radar. Doula, birth worker, it wasn't in my field at the time of awareness. But with my youngest son, I had actually come across the role of doula. I think I was studying my massage course, and if I remember rightly, the tutor of that course mentioned it just one day, was on lunch or on a break, and was having a chat, and she mentioned that she was looking to go into the role of becoming a doula, and we was all like, a what? A what now? And she explained what her understanding of a doula, and that was all well and good. And I remember somebody asked her, how much do you get paid for that? And when she said, we was all, okay, doula, yeah. Let's go and find out about this doula stuff. But at that time, that's all it was. It was, and then I got pregnant while on that course. Very surprisingly, um, I found out I was pregnant and was like, wow, okay, here we go again, and went through the process of hospital checks and appointments, but when it came to the actual labor and to the actual birth, I was older, a little bit older, so I had more of my voice, and with the first two I'd had an epidural, so I'd kind of been, I think I was over, and I'd been induced, and things progressed, quite quickly, as they do with an induction. And I had the epidural. I don't ever remember asking for an epidural. It was very much everything that happened almost happened to me. So they was like, right, this is going to happen next. This is what's, and it was like, okay. But with my third birth, it was like, no, we're not doing that. And actually, no. I want to do it this way. And I had more of kind of a say over, and then the response to that would be very much, what do you mean? But okay then. Right from the start, when my waters went and I went into the hospital, I look back now because there's still so much more that I know now, and it's like I shouldn't have even been heading to the hospital at that stage. But I headed into the hospital, and when I got there, the midwife, you know, she wanted to do her thing, and I was like, I'm just gonna pop downstairs, because she wanted to put monitors on and do all of this, like, you're setting in for the night. And I was like, I just popped in to let you know that my waters had gone. So I had no intention of staying there. I hadn't taken my bag or anything. So I was like, I'm just gonna go downstairs and, you know, sort out the car, and I went home. I was like, oh no, not yet. So I went home. We ate. We had food. Chilled out. And then, you know, the pressure of the calls of like, where are you? It started increasing, because they were looking for me. So I headed back. And at that point, I think they was a little bit annoyed that I had gone AWOL. And so it was almost like I was then put on monitors and things, but more than what had previously been mentioned. And I think that was to keep me still and to keep me kind of in my place. So yeah, labor continued. I didn't have any pain relief. And then we got to the pushing stage of, you know, babies coming out. My son was with me. So he was about 11 at the time, my middle child. And I remember him sitting with me through so much of the labor. And he was kind of making me keep it together, because it was like, I can't be losing my head and going crazy with him here. So let me just try and, you know, and it was helping me, you know. For many, I would not advise that, of trying to contain yourself, let it loose. But on that occasion, it did help me. And then the midwife was like, look, it's about to get real. Baby is like, you're fully dilated. It's about to push. He has to leave. And I remember feeling a bit upset, like, you know, it's comforting me in a way. And he, you know, it wasn't scary for him. He was holding it. It was nice for him to be there. And she was like, no, he's got to go. He can't be here for this part. And I foolishly listened, and I made him leave the room. He went and sat downstairs with his brother's uncle. And baby's dad came in, and we did it together. But looking back now, that's one of the regrets that I had, that I didn't follow my mind and let him stay, because I think it could have been really impactful for him, and empowering later on in life. However, I pushed. I didn't have an epidural, so I felt everything this time around. I pushed, and I gave birth vaginally, and it felt completely different than the first two. And as much as it was uncomfortable, and I can't now go back and remember the pain, but what I do remember is the feeling of power. Like, what? I did that? Like, what? It felt really powerful. It felt really, I felt pride. I felt like it gave me something. It gave me a gift that I didn't know was possible to get from that experience. So then I had the feelings of, I had been robbed the first two times. I was like, wow, if that was there waiting for me, and it was taken away from me the first two times, imagine everybody else that don't know that this is waiting and will never know. So it kind of, that really planted the seed. So then we had the kind of the previous conversation of being aware of what a doula was. And then we had the experience of that birth to be what a doula can be for. So to let people know, you know, that this is the birth that they can have and that they deserve. So yeah, very, very soon after the birth of my son, I set out on my quest to inform everybody that, you know, there's something really magical waiting for you, and you have access to it, but you just have to know that you need to not even ask for it, but you need to know it's there, you know, and then you can make your ways to achieving it and to gaining it. But with that gift, that will set you up so far going forward in life. Like, it will impact so much more. That was a long answer.
No, a very good answer, in fact. But I like how you put it as well, because it is a gift, you know, giving birth and feeling that power that you speak about. I guess you've been able to articulate it. And up until now, I've never really actually thought of it being that articulated in that way, but that is actually what it is. I've always said, like, yeah, like, I can't put words to it, like, I don't know, it's just something amazing, like, it's something that
Yours even more so, because mine was still very much, it was in a hospital setting. I still had some form of monitors going on. I was still in this environment of people coming in and, bothering me, and I was still in a hospital environment. So as much as I was able to gain so much from that, it could have been so much more. Like, like I said, if I knew now what I didn't know then, I would not have even been in that hospital. I would have been at home,
but it still planted the seed. So
it did.
So we have to give thanks for that. But in terms of even how I came across you, I guess, and also feel free to ask me questions too, because I guess I got some stuff that would be good even within this conversation. But when I was actually pregnant, I was looking for answers and research, and not every woman, I guess, feels that way when they're pregnant, especially when no one else has done that before you, which typically, I guess, in our communities here, we just kind of go to the doctor, what the doctor says. That's what we've always done here. Well, I keep saying here because back home is obviously different, but so we never really, and what was shown, it being a horrible experience, birth is not positive, people find out you're pregnant. You're pregnant? Really? You're so young? And there's so much that just goes on with it all. And me personally, I wanted to actually at least prepare myself best. Fortunately for me, I heard a few stories from a few people of positive birth experiences. Being at home, doing it independently without medication, which inspired me. It was only a couple though, in a sea of so many negative ones, including my own birth, my mom telling me my own birth story. And I guess, when I found out and then I searched, I was like, a doula. And I remember my sister Lucy, she was like, I was asking her about all of this, and she's like, I know a doula, Matiga. And I was like, all right, cool, okay. But she was gassing, I was like, okay. But little did I know she knew you from back in the days as well. Aylesbury Times, she's always said to me. So I'm like, okay, yeah. She's like, yeah, I always see her posting about all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So then obviously I connected with you then, and that's when we started the process. And then, funny enough, probably the listeners might laugh, or you're even laughing already. Then you sent me like the draft of how much it's gonna cost, and I was like, "What?"
I remember you because I was like, "Rah, where's she gone?" She ghosted me.
I was like, "What?" I said, "I'm not messaging you again."
Listen, I was really because I was cool. I thought I would and I had to be really delicate of how I approached you again, because I was like, because this is the thing, you can start a process with a mum, and just how nature is, sometimes not all things come to fruition. So you got to be very careful if something does go quiet, to be like how you go, like how you everything cool,
I still
everything
had the baby,
correct.
but I was like,
you was like,
I saw the price and I was like,
but this is the thing, because it was always gonna be, you come through Lucy, this is family. I was just sending you like, this is my usual price. This is how
I didn't have a clue.
It was like, I ain't paying all of that.
I remember even I said to Lucy, is this how much it's meant to be? And she said, "Wow." She even said, "Wow, that's."
But
she's
remember,
like, I thought it was discounted. I was like, me too.
We hadn't even, no, you didn't even get the, she was like, I ain't having no more conversation. We're not even going to get to the conversation about discount or,
I was just shocked. I was shocked because I was thinking, well, you must think I'm rich.
But this is the thing, because if you remember, back when doula was first, introduced to that class, the massage class, and that was what got, I was like, you can earn what? And the thing is that even with those earnings, I'm very much on the low scale. I'm one of the cheapest around. And for my peers, because I've been doing it for so many years now, they're like, why, what are you charging? Like, what is this? What is this, peanuts? But for me, I mean, there's been many things kind of through the years in regards to, I think, just how I've grown and how many of us, you know, grow. It's that worthiness and self-worth. And, you know, when it comes to finances and money, there's often a lot of work to be done around that area. You're grown up with your parent. I ain't got money for that. There's no, it's a constant thing that's built around money to say that you can only have so much. So I've had to do a lot of work of sticking with my prices, sticking with my self-worth, sticking with my time and my energy and the effort that goes into being a doula, because it's not as much as, you know, it may sound very kind of easy, like you're just there holding their hand. Like, no, there's so much energy and effort that goes into supporting a mum through those last weeks, and then on the other side. So I had to really get real with what I'm giving out, and there had to be a match of transaction. So not necessarily that I'm, you know, I'm not charging peanuts anymore, but I'm also very much away from the average prices of what people are charging nowadays. And as well, because I think there's so many doulas out now, it's made the market kind of change in regards to what was many years ago. It's changed a lot because people are out here going crazy. Because for many, it's more of a necessity, not a necessity, but it's something that is needed for that real, you know, empowerment and guidance and help and support. But for many, it's a luxury. It's like, oh, we can have a doula because we can afford to have a doula, and because so many women are now doing that, and they're paying, you know, crazy amounts to have somebody as almost like an accessory. It's made the ones that are doing it for the real reasons and you know, really putting their heart into it, have to up their game, basically, in regards to what they charge. But yes, you ran away. You was like, oh, hell no. So I was like, rah, okay, that's cool. But ultimately, these things very, very often play out exactly as they're meant to. And I remember you very clearly being like, I'm just having a baby. Like, I'm just gonna have a baby. Like, I don't know what I'm paying for. So, and that's exactly what you did. You just had your baby.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
The fact that you went and you started looking for those options, and you went on that quest right from the beginning, already put you miles ahead of so many, you know, because very often people those couple of stories in that sea of negatives, they don't even get that, you know. It's just a constant bombardment of negative and you know, what they're seeing in the programs and so to have enough grit or something inside you to be like, I'm still going that way, you know, I'm still not following the herd, I'm gonna go see what's down this path. It takes a lot. So you already had it in you to be like, I'm good, I will do this by myself in my bathroom.
Well, that's exactly what happened. But before maybe we dabble into my own personal story, maybe later on in the chat, but
I'm exposing it all.
I guess on your website as well, you speak about your real connection with water, which I found quite interesting as well, in terms of you feel there's a deep connection with water. Do you kind of incorporate this within like your births as well?
Water, I mean, I have a couple of birth pools, so it's something that I definitely, one of the options that I lay out for clients, or even for those that aren't necessarily clients, I hire out one of my pools. So that's for a water birth experience. The water for me, I mean, there's certain things that I won't get into in regards to, it's a bit mad. My connection goes deep.
Feel free.
No.
This is a free
Listen.
zone. You don't need to go to the extreme.
Nah, I
but
can't even.
double.
Let's say we've established a strong relationship in ways that you couldn't even imagine. But yeah, the water is part of me. And I'm definitely in awe of the power of water. Um, it holds memory, it holds the stories, it's us, right? We're mostly water. Um, those water structures, there's a guy, I always forget his name, Emoto something. We're gonna go with that. I don't know if it's completely off, but he basically has a book called The Hidden Message in Water. Hidden Messages in Water. And he was behind an experiment that's quite widely known now of having two sets of water and feeding one or speaking to one with very negative messages, writing, hate and war and bad statements, and putting that on the cup of one or a jug of one, and then having another where it's love and it's union and all these positive statements, and speaking positively into this water, and using both of these waters to water the same plants in the same quantities, the same environment. The one with the negative messages died, it was gone, and the one with the positive messages flourished and grew. And he also done a lot of like using microscopic equipment to really look at the structure of water and the difference between those two types of water, so the one that's been fed the negative and the one that's had the positive. The structures are completely different. The ones with the negatives are very disorientated and off and quite jagged and sharp, and the one with the positive ones are like beautiful patterns, and they all synchronize, and it's all like, it's mad. But this is how deep it goes, to that very cellular, like, so you have to use microscopes that can see things that the eye can't see to really see how deep it goes. But that's how intelligent water is, and many would say that it's a living being, it's a living organism. So if we have that within us, it holds the stories, like through our tears. Our tears are the same salt content as the sea. It's that constant, as without, so within, as above, so below. It's all connected. So the water, I think, it plays a big role in, we know that for full moons, so we've just had a full moon yesterday, I think, for one of the organisations that we might get into talking about later that I work with. We had like 3 births in that night, and 2 of them was half an hour apart on the midnight. So one half an hour before midnight, one just after. But that full moon, how it can really affect the waters, that's the amniotic fluid that it's having an effect on. It's real. So if you speak to midwives, they will say, like, during full moons, the intake for women coming in is higher. So it affects so much of us as humans, but very much so as women. And I'm constantly in awe of that dance, that interaction, and how that plays out. So I try to show honor to that wherever I can, and in birth very often is one of the places that happens. So whether it's bringing in the elements before and paying homage to them and asking them to the energy of the elements to be present, and to work in their ways to help it be a smooth labor or birth. All of those things are taken in to consideration. Sometimes I will have clients that are very much on board with that, and they want it to be, fully displayed and be part of it. And others are like, don't really know about all of that. So it's something that I have to then do personally for my own practices. But yeah, It's a big part.
I guess giving birth as well, especially nowadays, has become so medicalized,
Mm.
seen as a fearful experience, and I guess sadly, a lot of people are associating birth, pregnancy, and that journey, motherhood, with those negative
Mm.
connotations. I guess for me, what I'd like to kind of explore and ask you about is um nowadays, I guess there is kind of been a shift with people. I don't know if you've seen this, now having home births more.
Mm.
And I guess a lot of people don't know as well that giving birth at home was actually the only way.
Mm.
Not that long ago, I even remember saying to my dad, yeah, I want to give birth at home with no one. And he said, what century do you think we're in? And that's just one brief kind of encounter during my journey,
Mhm.
but I know that's not just a uncommon thing, that even my dad, whose parents are born in
Mm.
not this country,
Mhm.
had that kind of, outlook on something that I personally thought was going to be normal. But
I
yeah.
love that. I think the one of the gifts, I think, just from my perspective, like with you, is because you have that beautiful relationship with nature. You've been able to get closer to source than many others. Um, Many others have been able to around you, maybe around us. Living in London, we're in a concrete jungle. Like, it's just the environment and what it reflects. It's hard, it's cold, it's it's closed, it's oppressive. So to find our natural way of being is quite difficult in this environment. But the more you do that, or the more you're able to do that and take yourself into nature, you start to remember the old ways. Nature will speak to you. Nature will gift you things that you don't even know you're being gifted. Putting in little messages, putting in little, but all it is a remembering of how it used to be. Because those, like I said, those stories are in our waters, they're in our blood, they're in our bones. So it's all there. It's just that um, it needs to be remembered. It needs to be, pulled back out, drawn out. And our environment does not help for it to be drawn out. It helps it to stay buried, and then put some bricks on it and some cement and so it stays deep down. But the more you're in nature, it starts to kind of resurface and come to so you saying, I want to give birth by myself. That's your natural, memory coming through to the way in which we used to do it, and that you can do it. If we think of animals and cats, and they find a dark space and they go and do their thing. And if somebody enters that room and turns on the light and comes to see what they're doing, they can stop giving, but like they can literally stop in the process and move location to be like, listen, I need my space. It can stop the whole thing going on for them to get that natural, what they need to do what they need to do. And I think what's happened with us is that light's been turned on and people come in and staring in between our legs, like so much that we've actually forgotten to get up and move somewhere else where it makes sense, and we stay there, and we we allow it to happen. We expect it to happen. But that's not just come from nowhere. That's been reinforced with the programs that we see, one born every minute. Or you're seeing, if you're watching films, any childbirth scene, it's the woman screaming, and
Mm-hmm.
there's blood everywhere, or like she's on her back with her legs, like it's a madness. It's like, who wants to do that? So again, it's feeding that thing to be like, oh, no, stay away from from the natural way of doing things. Like, in fact, let's not even talk about childbirth, because we don't have those conversations. We don't have, it's the same as death, which is significant, life and death, you know, both ends of the, but we feel very uncomfortable sometimes. Not me, I'm a Scorpio through and through, like bring it on. But to talk about death and, you know, how are you going to die? What would you want to happen? And everyone, don't talk about that. Like, why? What? We're all going to go through it. But it's kind of, we've got the same similar ways around birth, that we don't have enough conversations around it. But ultimately, I think the more that we do have, and especially the good ones, because I don't know if you all remember, but to all my clients, to all, I always say like that, those scales of the negative to the positive already from when you enter the room is lopsided. You know, you're gonna have more of the negative stories because it's just everyone has the hospital route, and very often that turns into a negative experience. So they're carrying those stories in their waters. They're carrying those stories to go and share and get off their chest. And, you know, you're pregnant. Oh, my pregnancy was it, and I went through this, and I had, like, they want to let it out. So you're constantly hearing all of these stories, but it doesn't mean that that has to be your story. You know, you can shift it. And I say that when you have that scale of so many negatives, just based on the negative bias, which is for survival, anything negative gets more weight, in our beings, because it's going to keep us safe, right? So anytime we get close to that negative again, we can protect ourselves, you know, run away from it, or get ready to fight. Or so the negative holds a lot of weight, so you have to put double the positive on just to match the balance of to weigh it out for the negative, if that makes sense. You know, so if you've got negative birth stories, you then need to put on triple the amount, you know, 4 times the amount of the positive birth stories, just to block out the noise that the negative will be making, in the back of your mind, and to kind of just have it as a natural playing field. But they are out there, but you have to look for them, because they're not the ones that are forthcoming. They're not the ones that you're going to get when you turn on the TV and watch EastEnders. They're not the ones that you're going to get while you're sat on the bus and the woman next to you sees your big belly and wants to start going all into her 5 C-sections, and, you know, she nearly died. So it's, yeah, you have to look, or you have to block those ones out. So even if you can't find too many around you, just try not to let in too much of the common ones, you know, until we get to that place where it's going to be you sharing your birth. Really, you did that? Yeah. Oh, okay. So the more we have the positive birth stories and they start spreading, I think, going back to kind of you mentioning the increase in home births during the lockdown, there was a lot of people that was backed into a corner because partners weren't being allowed into the hospitals. Hospitals were moving crazy. Like, you know, this whole COVID thing just had them going wild. And a lot of people were like, I'm not going in there. One, because it might make me more at risk of catching something, you know, being in the hospital. Secondly, what do you mean I can't come in with my husband, or no one can be with me? So they were forced to then look at the options, and then people were like, home birth, what, we're allowed to do that? We're not going to get arrested and, you know, our kids taken away from us. So people started becoming aware that that was an option, and then that started spreading. And, you know, so I think the lockdown, as much as it had its negatives, it had so many positives, and that was one of them, that people really started finding out what was open to them. And once they found out, yeah, there was no, it's like, okay, right, go back.
So would you say, what's some of the like differences or comparisons for a woman in the hospital environment to the home,
Oh, there's so many. So
to get the
because
best positive outcome with both, I guess, as well?
the main for me, that I see, is the way in which the natural hormones can do their thing, and they're given the space to do their thing. So if we go back again to the animals and how they give birth, you know, it's instinctual, it's natural. for that to be supported, you have to be in an environment that those instincts and that natural way of being can be. If you're in an environment, it's almost like, if I say, when you're going to the hospital, you're entering someone else's house. So you might not, I don't, go into somebody else's house and start going in their fridge. Like, I'm just gonna go and poo in your toilet. You're gonna be in there a bit, like, hold it down, like, have manners, have respect, and you are waited to you wait until you're offered certain things, or you'll ask, can I go to your bathroom? And you've got a different way of just, then when you're in your house, you're just out and about. You might be walking around naked, you're cooking, you got your music on, you're free, and these are just some of the main ways in which our environments can help us to be free. So when you walk into a hospital, although it kind of gives that patient vibe, so that anything you need, just ask, and you get that kind of, because that's what a hospital's for, right? You're there to be tended to. But at the same time, it's not really an environment that you fully feel able to do that in its fullness. And as well, you're not going in there sick. You're going in to have a baby. So already you don't need to be going in there to be like, I really need this wound to be mended and sewn up, and you're going in there to do one of the most natural things that as women we do. So to walk into this place that has lots of strangers, lots of bright lights, lots of noise, often off-key smells, like, it's already, you're going in there and you're closing up. And this is what we actually find, like, for many women, you can be like quite far, you're progressing well, so your cervix is dilating, your things are step into the hospital, it's like a backtrack. You've gone backwards, you're not progressing the way that you was before you went in. And this is, again, it's your instincts being like, hold on, everyone shut down, where are we, what's going on, are we safe? And that is really needed for birth to happen, for you to feel safe. For those hormones to be released, it has to be a feeling of everything's okay. You are safe to let this baby out, and baby as well, I think, needs to know, like, is it okay out there, can I come? All good, yeah. So it's that conversation within yourself that is happening continuously. And in a hospital, I find that it doesn't flow as well as it can when you're in your own home comfort.
It has become like quite a hard hitting, traumatic kind of reality ish that black women face a high mortality rate compared to the white counterparts. I guess why is that happening? Do you have an idea? And what can be done to make this change in terms of safety, in terms of all the elements around why it's possibly happening? And
so there's something that comes out in October, around October times. I don't think it's yearly, I think it's every couple of years, but it's called the Embrace Report. And when we had the whole Black Lives Matter movement, Black Square time, when all that was going on, people started paying attention to this Embrace Report, because it has information in regards to the disparities around birth, and those entering the systems that be. And it showed that black women were indeed 5 times more likely to die during childbirth and the maternal journey than their white counterparts. So a lot of research was done and is still happening to find out why is this we know why. Like, we
why
know
though?
why.
I'm not sure I know why.
So again, it's ultimately, it's systematic racism, within these institutions. So we see it in the schooling, in how our young black boys especially are expelled and kicked out of school, how they're treated in school. We see it in the school to prison pipeline. We see it in the prisons.
Mental health.
Mental health. The main institutions that surround us and that hold up this society apparently hold up because right now, but all of those institutions clearly show that there's the disproportions, and that ultimately underneath all of that, it's white supremacy. It's and for a lot of people, it's like, oh, that seems such a strong statement to make or such a strong title to give it, but it is what it is. It is what it is. We've seen from back in our parents' generations of sus laws, and I mean, we to go into it is we're all aware at this point, we should be anyway, absolutely. And although that whole Black Lives Matter movement time was very much performative, a lot of it, a lot of diversity programs and all of this stuff started because of that movement and because of what was going on. Not much of it has really infiltrated where it needs to, and made a difference where it really needs to make a difference. And to be honest, a lot of those programs now are being like dismantled and be like, okay, so we've done a couple of years of that. We're gonna take back that money. Let's disband, and a lot of those programs are being, taken away. So again, it's another demonstration that it was performative. It wasn't really for the real. It was just to look as though something was being done, and maybe to some point it was. The incentive was there for something to happen, but the commitment to the effort needed to really push it to where it really makes a difference wasn't there.
We haven't really explored your birth experiences and the difference properly. I know you said the third one was different to the other two, but like, can you kind of? I'd like to hear something specific about any of those birth experiences.
I know that I've probably talked in each question as it relates to, I've gone in to about 10 questions in one, but going back to those ones of, I didn't know what I didn't know, basically. So the first two, I was a young mum. I was a teenager. I mean, if we take my daughter, Malika, she I don't even know. She'll be cool. I'll share it anyway. But when I was given that that information of being pregnant, I had booked a holiday. Had been booked to Guyana with my dad, and I was hyped. I was hyped. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go get a tan, going, to the falls. I was hyped up. And then I found out that I was pregnant. They were like, look, date-wise, by the time you go on your holiday and you have your, month-long breakaway and then come back, it's going to be beyond the point of you making any other decisions than you having this baby, So know what you want to do. I can stand here today being like, that is mad, but at the time it was a given of like, nah man, I'm not missing out on this holiday. So I wasn't even thinking of like what motherhood would entail and birth, and I was like, I ain't missing this holiday. I'm not missing out on this tan time and this month away. And that was a big factor of what led my decision to be like, okay, so we're having a baby then, because I'm going
Guyana.
I'm going Guyana. So that's how far removed I was from, it was, yeah, it was so mad to think that that was me. And not only was that me, but that is so many young women out here today, like that, and have um, no real desire to sit down and contemplate the enormity of what childbirth and motherhood and that whole journey is, that they're just going through. And that's on both sides. That's on actually going through with having a child and not, because that's a whole nother thing in itself, of abortion and where we are um, with our young women in regards to abortion rates and how that whole process plays out. But yes, so my experiences with them was very different from, like I said, where I was then to where I was with my second son, which was only a few years later, and to then where I was with my last. I feel that I was three completely different people. Um, yeah, three different versions of me. All of those still reside within me, but they're not running the show. They're not driving the car anymore.
Fair enough. I guess the first time um I had to recite this story of my own birth experience, it was quite surreal because my birth story was quite shocking even to myself, not let alone to any other person. For me anyway, I always planned a home birth. I um had a pregnancy that was quite smooth, only vomited twice the whole pregnancy. Everything was fine. So when it got to 40 weeks on the day, um I had to go and do a little checkup. And the midwife said on Monday the home birth team wants you to come to the hospital to check your progression. So I used to go to my appointments with my mum, and me and my mum are like talking to my stomach. We're like, it's time to come now. We ain't going no hospital. Like we ain't going no hospital. You need to come out now. You're not like let's not go hospital on Monday. This was a Friday, right? So as we're saying that, and I actually decided to stay at my mum's house that day. Um, I'd say early hours of the morning of Saturday. I can't sleep. I'm waking up. I can't really sleep. I'm not too comfortable. Um, and I go to my mom. My mom says, I said, Mom, I can't find no comfortable position to sleep in. She's like, just try and sleep. Maybe the baby's coming. Just try and sleep. Anyways, cut a long story short, we went over to my house. Luckily that week we had already like cleared the whole living room space. The birth pool was up, and we realized that we would have needed the hose,
The
the
adjustment, tap
adjustment for
adjustment.
the hose. So anyway, it's the day now essentially, which we didn't necessarily. Well, my mum knew, but I was like, okay, this is. I've not felt this, but it was very different, and I guess um it was, let's say, at like 10 a.m. around to about 12 a.m. we went to my house, which is not far from my mum's. Everything, the pool was up. um my best friend, she was, so I already organized that I wanted women there. I didn't want any men there like that. I said my dad as an exception ish, only with the fact that he might be helping out or something.
Easy strip.
Yeah, I was like, other than that, I just want women. I picked two of my sisters, and in fact, yeah, two of my sisters, my best friend, and my mom. So anyways, cut a long story short, I was in active labor. No, I was just going into active labor. Um, in that stage, basically, just when I came to my house, and what it was, the uncomfortable sleeping part, which it went into, was a back pain, a lower back pain. So because of a lot of the research I had done prior, I kind of knew what to do generally, and also my mum's expertise of having 4 children. She was like, okay, we're gonna get a warm towel and I'm gonna put it on your back, but I couldn't stand up for long or sit down for long. So funny enough, the place that we went into, because there was no, at this stage, one of my sisters and my dad had gone out to get the hose attachment. So it's just my mum and me at this point, and my mum's, we got a hand mirror as well, by the way, as a guide and all of this. My mum is in the kitchen, and I'm in the bathroom. So I've said, my sister's just come in, but this back pain's getting to me so much because my mum's doing the hot towel and stuff, and there's a light on in my passage near my bathroom, and I've said to my sister, turn that light off. I just wanted to be in the dark, which was obviously in the moment I just was going with whatever I felt, kind of thing.
Cave, you're looking for that cave.
Boy, the bathroom was the cave, I guess. So my mum said, oh, she ran the bath a bit and said, try go in the bath as a water thing. I tried to go in the bath. I started panicking. I was like, no, I don't like the feeling of this for some reason. Stepped out, and then back was kind of hurting, towel on there. Funny enough, I didn't message my closest friend. Somehow she's coming through the door, and she just took over from my mum. My sister's role was the music, because I know she's got the tunes. So I was like, yeah, run one of those playlists. Funny enough, she put on like an old school soul kind of vibe, some Marvin Gaye and stuff. So that was all cool, and I was in the dark still in the bathroom. My closest friend took over for my mum. I was like kind of putting my hand around her. She was kind of holding me up, and as I said, I couldn't stand or sit for too long. And what I was sitting on was the toilet, and what I was standing on was leaning against the wall. So my friend was like assisting me with that movement of either sitting on the toilet or standing on the wall at the same time with like a warm kind of towel on my back. And this went on for about 30 minutes, which I didn't know was so rapid, but my friend the whole time, she comes across quite quiet, right? So she's just there with a phone, like kind of tracking how long the contractions are. And one thing that also you helped with in that period of time was that you told me that a contraction never usually lasts more than 1 minute. So anytime I was getting them, I was like, okay, breathe. So I was just breathing. And the breath did a lot for me in my whole birth experience. Anyways, it went from 10 minutes to 5 minutes, and then the baby was coming, and that was like as I said, within like 30 minutes. And so funny enough, now my waters hadn't broke in all of this, so I was sitting down at this point, and I stood up, and I heard plop, and I was thinking, that can't be the baby, but it was the plug or like the waters as well at the same time, kind of thing. And that's when I was like, oh wow. And then I felt his head. My son's head was literally right there. My waters broke, my son's head was literally right there, and I'm like, I need to stand up, and I knew a contraction was about to come. So I'm like to my sister, get me a warm cloth. So one of the fears I had was ripping or tearing. So I learned a bit about, positioning, first of all, never to be on your back, all fours, squatting. And in that situation, squatting was the first thing that came to mind. So what happened is I said to my sister, warm cough in between that short period before the next one came. And then they were panicking about towels. When I say panicking, it was a silent panic that we laughed about after the baby came. But towels were getting got, and a warm cloth, and I put the warm cloth just between my vagina and my anus whilst his head was crowning. I stood up and kind of squatted on my tiptoes a bit. My friend holding all my weight. I'm holding onto the radio on the other side as well. Didn't push. Just
Body
he came, one contraction, and then another contraction, and he was out. And my sister was in time to catch him. Then she just put him on my chest. Then I just remember being so in shock that all of that just happened. And as you said, I just was like, wow, this really just happened. And I guess, yeah, it was
You
quite a
did
profound.
that, man. You
It was
did
quite, yeah, it was quite a profound experience, I guess.
that.
But yeah, I just went into the living room,
Mm.
and one bit I missed out actually was that my mum with a hand mirror. My mum said, "Have a look. Tell me what you think." And I looked, and I was like, "Mum, it don't usually look like this." then, and then that's when I think she had, in the mix of it all, gone off to ring the midwife. But yeah, that was the main parts of all the birth. But it was, as you said, and now I can definitely say what you said is what I felt was like a power in trusting myself, trusting my baby, trusting my body, a power of the environment, the people that were present. Yeah, and everyone played their role. Everyone knew it was a lot of instinct going on.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a lot of word exchange, funny enough. There was just instincts. I was in the dark. I never thought that I was gonna be giving birth in the dark, but I wanted to be.
That's it's the natural
I
way.
literally
It's
just
the
felt like I couldn't have no lights on.
mm-hmm.
I just needed to be in the dark and breathe. That was the two things that just. That's why it was like 1 hour overall. But
These
yeah.
are like your birth story. These are the stories that need to be told, right? Because that story, it's allowing people another be like, what? Half an hour, and that it happen. This is how it can happen when everything is left alone. You know, nature can do what it does, and nature does stuff good. Like
100%.
it does good stuff. Like it provides so much, and it works. That cave that you was, you know, it's the stimulation. So sometimes the lights, the smell, this is the overstimulation that can shut things down. So that wanting no stimulation because you're just focusing on the body just needs to focus on what it's doing. It doesn't need to think, why is that light on? What's that smell? What's that? It just needs to do what it's doing. And when it's left to just do what it does, it will do what it does well.
100%.
You know?
And even in my doula course, when I found out that a paralyzed woman can give birth,
Absolutely.
that in itself, I was like, wow. Yeah, no, I know I had my own personal experience, but to hear that, I was like, naturally, a woman's body knows what to do in these scenarios.
If left alone.
And that's when I started to, I guess, appreciate and value birthing experience and everything in a whole nother regard too. But yeah, just to wrap it all up, I guess, after this
It was a long one, right?
this wonderful conversation we've engaged in today, can you share some wisdom for a woman going through pregnancy and preparing for birth?
So going back to that kind of doing your research and, you know, seeking the knowledge and seeking as much. There's a guy called Michael O'Dent, a beautiful, beautiful man that has contributed a lot to obstetrics, but in a way that would be preferred. And one of his quotes is that a woman shouldn't spend, I say quotes, it's, yeah, might be a bit off, but basically he's saying that pregnancy shouldn't be spent reading and researching, and it should be spent sat at a window looking at the moon, you know? And I think that says a lot into, you can do the research and it's powerful and it's important that you do because of what we're dealing with in regards to the systems and the institutions that we're going into. You have to have some knowledge of, you know, what you're going into and the things that will be discussed and brought up. But really it's trusting and knowing that you've got this, you know. Your body was designed to do that. And it's not to say, because I don't want to come across here today like there isn't ever any need for medical assistance and there isn't ever any need to go into these hospitals and seek their services, you know. There absolutely is. There'll be circumstances where that has to be the way that that things are taken forward. But usually nature does its thing, you know? Nature does its thing and it does it well. And it's that thing of remembering that birth is not a medical it's not a medical occurrence. It's a natural occurrence that sometimes needs medical assistance, you know? So I would say for any women that do find themselves to be with child, that are going to be, you know, having a baby, go and see what your options are, you know? Have conversations with people that are going to give you those full spectrum options and possibilities and ideas. Stay away from the negative and the scary fear-based stories. Find something different than what's been offered for so long, so that we can join in numbers to be sharing stories like yours. And the more that we can share those stories, that becomes the norm, right? That becomes what we're used to hearing, and then we can really see what we're capable of. I think that's what a lot of the system is scared of. It's scared of that power of who we can be and what we can be if only we realized what we possess within us and what we're capable of. But your story is testimony to that, you know. And so many other women out there have these testimonies to be like, no, we got this. Like,
To be fair, my story out is actually a testament based off another woman's stories of her having two home births herself and doing it with her partner. So mine has been off the back of another woman's kind of thing. So I'm not the beginning of this butterfly effect.
But it that's how much it ripples, right? So the more that we can have those ripples, the further it will spread. And you know, there's hope. I wouldn't say that all hope is lost in keeping hold of birth in the way that it should be, you know, as a rites of passage, as a miracle, as a beautiful sacred ceremony. Like, it's not all hope lost, that because if we looked at the hospital system, it could seem that, you know, C-sections are almost at, you know, half the rate of natural births. So you're going into the hospital and the balance is crazy. So if we was looking at just at that trajectory, it'll be like soon we're not going to have any natural births. But then we hear the other side of the story, and that's your, you know, your testimony and the women like you to say, oh no, we're not letting this go. You know, it's too powerful, too beautiful to just lay down and accept for it to be the way that we used to do things. You know, it's the way that we have to do things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my advice, to go and get what's yours. Go get it.
Thank you so much for speaking to me today. And I guess where can listeners and people generally, you know, find you and your work?
I'm not even gonna say go look at my website, because I don't think I've even gone to look at my website since 2016. I am old school, so it's phoning me, reaching out. Usually people find a way to find me, but even if it's dropping an email or dropping a message on my Instagram, Makeba.Doula, I do look on there occasionally. So yeah, usually I will just send on my number from there. You reach out to me, I will give my number, and we go old school. You know, we talk. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I know there might have been a bit of noise in this episode, but we are in the polytunnel in Paper Garden. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so fortunate to be able to be facilitating this podcast here. If you are able to donate to Paper Garden, that would be truly appreciated to help them give back more to the community.